Hey everyone, it's Heath from History Seekers, and no, this is not clickbait. We are going to give you secrets today. We get asked so many times how we find some of the places that we find, specifically military camps and that sort of thing. But first, I need to give you a little prerequisite on us. We started out podcasting, and in those podcasts, we interviewed a lot of very knowledgeable, interesting people. One of which was my friend Butch Holcombe that runs American Digger magazine. He's got over 50 years experience in the hobby, and he's a very accomplished relic hunter. So we had the opportunity to have him on our podcast back around 2016 or 17 or so, and he actually shared a lot of the secrets and the same things that we use. Now, these work for Civil War camps, Revolutionary War, Span Am, doesn't matter. Whatever you're hunting for, this will work for you. So join us as we go back, and I'm going to play this podcast. We're going to have some video behind it because on Facebook, we can't put it up unless it has video attached. We're just muting the video volume, and all you're going to hear is the podcast and just see some stock digging stuff from just extra film we had. Anyway, let's get to it right now, and we'll see you guys at the end.
On a mission to discover history, no matter where it takes them. You're now live with the History Seekers.
And you are now live with the History Seekers, and welcome back to another week. We really appreciate you joining us. We are brought to you by Treasure Mountain Metal Detectors and American Digger magazine, the two best places in the world to get your digging information and your digging tools right there. And my name is Heath Jones. I'm your host tonight. I work for Treasure Mountain Metal Detectors. You can find out more about us at treasuremtndetectors.com or call me direct at 256-284-2247. And our other host out there, Mr. Scott Duncan.
Hello, folks. Heath, we went from dry and being able to detect poorly constantly to like this rainforest, cold rainforest where we can't detect at all.
You know, I think it was the rain dance I did. I did it. You know, some of our listeners said if you'll get out there and do it in your underwear, dancing around and everything, there's a video floating around somewhere. I don't know, but it worked. It's raining. It's still raining. I think I did it too much. And I think I liked it. Yeah. So we've been stuck inside. We got out and detected a little bit Saturday. You made me cut it short so we could watch that travesty of a football game, if that's what you want to call it.
It was a good one.
Yeah, I guess I turned it off halfway through, but we did get to go out and metal detect, and that's what's important. And I found one silver. Wasn't even an old one, really. It was a rosy, though. So, but it was a yard that we had pounded before, and that rain made the difference, and I tell you, that T2 slammed it.
Yep. I guess the weekend before we'd gotten just a tiny bit of rain, and I pulled about 4 silvers out of there, so there was still a little bit more. There probably is a silver or 2 left there, but I think we're pretty much done with that one.
Yeah, it's an old, beautiful house, and I think we even did a live video on my Facebook. I'll have to share that over to the History Seekers. So, but I tell you, man, I tell you what I've been doing today, besides working, selling metal detectors, which has been a lot, but I did get a little bit of research time in looking for Civil War records and military camps and that sort of thing. I've got to send that information over to you. So that I think that's going to be one of our projects that we're working on, and something that Scott and I really enjoy. Scott, you've been working on a couple things as well, had you not?
I have. I've been working on a few things where some of these outfits that came out of Alabama and went kind of into Georgia. And, you know, these things are not like battlefields where, you know, they're pretty well marked and pretty well known, and you just need to get near them where the troop movements were. These are where they're traveling across country, and they pick a place to stop and camp, and you know, it's like a needle in a haystack out there trying to find where they stopped for the night or for a couple of nights. It's a little trickier.
Yeah, you know something, Scott, and it doesn't matter, and that brings us to our show tonight. When we have questions, we always lean on an expert, somebody that knows, has done this 40 plus years and knows his stuff, runs one of the most successful magazines in the country, Mr. Butch Holcombe, and we've got him on, and we're not going to waste any time chit chatting tonight. We're going to bring him on and talk about some of this stuff because we've got a lot of information to cover. And Butch, are you out there, buddy?
I'm out here, guys. Great
All
to be
right.
on here tonight. I appreciate you inviting me on.
Yeah.
I don't know about the expert part. I always say all the experts died shortly after the Civil War. That's the guys that were there. But
That's true.
it's true of any war. But all of us today are just people that have learned, and we try to learn as we go along.
Well, I tell you what, though, when I have a question, I always call you.
Well, I
Because you usually
appreciate
have
that.
the
I do
answers.
have a little experience at it. I've been keeping a coil to the soil for almost 50 years now, so kind of tells my age.
I was shortchanging you with 40 years, huh?
You were. I haven't exactly done the math, but I actually started at about 1968 with a metal detector that I made from a kit. And I wish I'd known more about camps back then, which I think we're going to be talking about tonight. But I've learned a lot of tricks on finding camps. And, the thing is, Heath and Scott, that camps for the Civil War, you can use the same methods to find camps for the Revolutionary War, the Civil War, War of 1812, all the way up to World War II and possibly even beyond, just by certain criteria you have to look for.
Yeah,
I've even heard that. I've even heard that the same kind of rules apply for finding, places where Indians camped as well.
It is
because
a good
they were
place
looking
to
for the same
live or
sort of-
camp is a good place to live or camp, pretty much throughout the eons.
Right.
Well, real quick, Butch, tell us, I know you're a relic hunter, but what got you looking for camps to begin with? Just brief history on why you started looking for them and where you turned to first when you first got started.
Okay, when I first started metal detecting, I didn't know a lot of other people. In fact, I didn't know anyone else that was doing it other than Dent Myers in Kennesaw. But here in North Georgia, there were entrenchments in a lot of different places. A lot of them are gone now. And I started out going to these entrenchments of the Civil War soldiers and digging around the trenches. But what I didn't know is people had been doing that since the early 1960s. And I went for the first couple of years without finding a whole lot. And then suddenly it occurred to me, wait a minute, these guys had to be camped somewhere. And from there I started investigating it more and more. And I remember finding some of my first camps, and it was just like a kid at Christmas. There was all kinds of stuff in the campsites.
Oh, man, I tell you.
And they hadn't been found. Well, most of the ones I had been in, somebody else would have been in there before me because we have a lot of relic hunters even back then in this area. But for the most part, there was a lot more stuff there than there was the entrenchments. And they were harder to find. But I tell you, the one thing that I learned real quick to look for when you're looking for a camp, number one, the soldiers, be it whatever war they're from, in my case it was the Civil War, they had to have water. They had to have water for their troops. They had to have them for their horses. They had to have it for the sutlers, for everybody, every human being or animal that was with them, they had to have water. So a good way of doing it is also think that they, for the most part, marched along roads. A lot of times they would be on the side of the roads, but still they used roads to travel. Find a road they were traveling on, find where it crosses a creek, and that's where a lot of times you'll find a camp of some size.
Right. Now, how far off those roads would they typically go? And I know there's no right or wrong perfect answer, but generally speaking, about how far would they get off of the road?
I've seen them anywhere from being right on the side of the roads all the way to being an eighth of a mile off the road.
Okay.
And especially if there was some little side trail or something that went back through there, a lot of times they would camp off the road because it gave them a little more element of protection, I think, doing it that way.
Right. And now, am I right in saying they also put picket posts on down the
Oh yeah,
roads and surrounding the area? So you
they
might
did.
get on a little hot spot and not actually be on the camp.
That's right. In fact, let me tell you about the first camp I ever discovered, and it was kind of by accident because, like I say, I was looking at maps of entrenchments and hunting the entrenchments, and I found one little short set of trenches that showed up on the map. I mean, they were short, maybe an eighth of an inch on a normal size map, and I thought that's an odd place. So I went out there and I found out it was a picket post. Now, found a little bit of stuff around the picket post, but I started going back behind it, and 2 hills behind that picket post, which was actually about an eighth of a mile away, I got into the doggonest camp I've ever seen. And that's when I learned these picket posts, when you find one, go back a couple of hills, because the guys in camp wanted the warning. And actually, the guys at the picket post, they were almost like a canary in a coal mine. When they started to shoot, the guys back in camp knew something was going on. They could get their arms and they could line up and be ready for action. And it was pretty important to have a little bit of distance between the pickets and the camps.
Yeah, because if I remember correctly, they didn't, most of the time, they were not loaded. Their weapons were not loaded in camp, just at the pickets. Is that right?
Yeah.
So that would give them time to load those weapons.
And I'm sure it's happened, but I'm not familiar of a place here in North Georgia, at least, where a camp was actually attacked. But I think a lot of that may have had to do with the pickets, and I think what would happen if a camp did get in a skirmish or did get attacked, they would probably start moving the troops from the camp up to the picket lines, but I don't think that ever happened. I think the pickets were just kind of a fail-safe to make sure nobody came up through there. Surprised them.
So let me toss something kind of crazy out there.
Yeah.
So if you had a camp that was a long-term camp, I'm talking about one that went multiple years, would they sink wells?
Would they what?
Would they sink wells, or would they still try and get
wells?
that?
I think he's talking like the long term,
there are
the real
some
long term.
cases. Now, what I'm mostly familiar with, what I cut my teeth with, is these short-term camps that were here in North Georgia where they would stay for a night or two. I think the one I found, they had been there for like a week, which was a big camp. But they would also, in fact, house sites with wells, they would use those wells, but the trick with wells was they could be fouled real easy. And there were cases of actually the Confederates, when they knew the Yankees were coming up behind them, doing things like throwing a horse carcass or something down a well to poison the water, basically.
Right.
So, and also I would imagine, I'm not real versed on wells, but I would think that when you've got like 10,000 people all trying to drink out of one well, it wouldn't be a good thing. Now, there are cases, and especially down around the Savannah and coastal areas where the water table is not real low or real high, that they did actually dig some wells for use down there.
That's interesting. Yeah, because we'd wondered about that.
Yeah, it's they here in North Georgia to actually hit water, and I know because I've actually, like an idiot, have dug out 2 wells at Civil War house sites trying to see if anything was in the bottom of them. You have to dig at least 15 to 20 feet. No, I did. It was the biggest waste of time I've ever done in my life.
That's hardcore, though.
Oh, my God. It took 4 of us about 3 days, and the walls were real sturdy on the trenches because otherwise that's a very dangerous thing. But they were real sturdy. They were shored up. But we got down to almost the water table, and the walls started looking a little weaker at that point, and we didn't want to go down any deeper. We found a few square nails. That was probably close to 15 feet deep. And then another well we dug. Yeah, it was. In fact, I'll admit it, I was chicken to go down there, and the other 2 guys were going down. But we had ropes and pulleys rigged up against a big oak tree there, and safety lines and everything. So, hopefully if anything started to happen, we could get someone out. Probably not a smart thing to do. The other one we dug out was at a house site down in Atlanta, and it was at least partially brick-lined, which makes it pretty safe. But we got all the way to the bottom of it. It, again, was probably close to 15 feet. Never did hit water, but we hit a big rock that someone had thrown to the bottom. So we got this rock, pushed it up against the side, and below it we saw a bottle. It wasn't crushed, and we pulled out the bottle, and you guys would never believe what it was. It was a Coca-Cola bottle. Somebody had dug out the well about 20 years previously and filled it back in.
Wow.
So that's why I quit digging wells. It's a lot of danger and not a whole lot to find it. Now, I tell you, though, when you get up to the camps, the winter camps, those are what are cool, and you get into a lot of them up in Virginia where they would actually dig in to stay warm. They would build a little hut site around it, and they'd go down about 3 feet, sometimes 4 feet. And those, as far as what they did for water, they would have a liquid water source nearby, a creek or something like that. But you could dig out those hut sites, and that's like a time capsule. It's just amazing the stuff you'll find out of that. So if you ever want to dig up something in a camp, don't dig the wells, dig the hut sites.
Yeah, if you find those winter camps. But like you said, around the area we're in, they're all pretty much just a day, 2-day camps type thing.
They didn't. The only shelter they had, if they put up any shelter at all, it was just shelter tents. I think a lot of them probably just slept out in the open.
Right.
Are you going to find very much stuff in an overnight camp?
We find stuff, but not like you find in a long-term camp. And think of it this way, Scott. Okay, if you and your buddies went out camping, if you were there overnight, how much stuff would you lose? You'd lose a little bit of stuff. If you were there for 2 months, you'd lose all kinds of stuff, as well as tear up a lot of stuff and throw it away.
Sure.
That's true.
So
and
the
Yankees tend to just throw stuff all over the place.
What's that?
I said the Yankees tend to just strew stuff all over the place anyway.
Except where I hunt.
Yeah.
I think that's because of the relic hunters.
They didn't throw many General Service buttons your way, though, Scott.
No, they did not.
That's hilarious. So now the question on everybody's mind, Butch, we've established now that you need to find a water source near a roadway.
Right.
And of course, we're talking about an old Civil War or Indian Wars or whatever era camp you're looking for. You need to find the road. But now, what a lot of people do is take military records. Is that what you did? And then estimate the distance they traveled to find those camps, or start at least narrow down your search?
Actually, here in North Georgia, they got to a point for, a couple of months at least during the summer of 1864 up till they got to Atlanta, to where once you figured out the roads they were traveling on, they were focused on taking Atlanta. All of them were headed in that direction, and pretty much all you had to do around here is figure what road they were traveling on and find a picket post or find a water source and just hit it and see if anything's there. Some of them they weren't, but a lot of them they were. I've really found, like, the official records, the ones that were published by the government, to be almost useless in finding camps. If you want to find camps that way, by record, go and look for the diaries. In fact, a good trick, and I hope people are taking notes on this, because at one time I said I'd never give this trick away, but look up the era you're looking for. Let's say 1864 Civil War Diary, Atlanta, and Google something like that, and you're going to come up with diaries, and start reading those diaries from the soldiers, and do your research from that, and you'll get right on to a lot of camps. Hopefully, I've already been to all those camps, though, so that's
man. I tell you, Butch, I almost muted you. I'm just saying. I mean,
that's a secret I swore I would never give out. But nowadays there's so many other secrets, like Maprika and all that stuff that it just blows away the research we did. But I think terrain is important on camps, especially in a semi-hilly region like North Georgia is. There's only so many places that soldiers would camp, and this is true in the Revolutionary War all the way up to the World Wars. Okay, they're not going to climb a mountain to camp. That would be kind of dumb because, yeah, you got a good view, but how quick can you get a road to leave or, maneuver if you need to, and who wants to sleep on top of a mountain? And they wouldn't camp in swampland, so you can eliminate that. So basically, you're looking for fairly easy terrain within eighth of a mile of a road probably, and that's where you're going to find your camps. And look for square nails and jump. Never pass the area up because of square nails.
Very good point.
I've done it. I've been there, done that, got the T-shirt. Guy found a CSA buckle at a place I walked right through because I was digging too much trash. So
and I've mentioned this before. A prime example of that is Steve Phillips took me looking for Confederate camps, and he told me what to look for. And my very first really Confederate camp that I found, I told him, I said, I think I've got something. I called him over. I think his second target that he dug was a very rare Confederate belt plate, one of the rare ones.
Was.
Yeah, so
and I'm waiting on you to do that in bird dog camp for me like that.
I'm doing my best, buddy. I tell you, I try. So it was a lot of fun. I learned a lot from Steve, and I learned a lot from you as well.
Well, I look to people like Steve as my mentors because even though I've been doing it a long time, people like him have done it longer and had a lot more experience in this. So that's one thing that bothers me nowadays that I see on the internet a lot of times is, I hate to say it, but people, they've been in the hobby 2 or 3 years and suddenly they know everything about it.
Amen.
I've been in it almost 50 years and I really don't know near as much as I would like to know.
Yeah, they're quick to proclaim something.
Yeah,
and
you got to be careful with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I tell you, when that's a funny thing you mentioned that, because we were going to eventually start doing a segment on the show, what grinds my gears, and have this little 2 or 3 minute rant at the end of the show and just talk about those very type of topics. So I think we're on to something. That may be a good segment and for the other show.
Boys.
We may have a what grinds Butch's gears at the end of the show.
This grinds my gears, let me tell you. Well, that's why I say, and I said it at the start, kind of tongue in cheek, but it's true. One of the guy on Antiques Roadshow, Raphael Elridge, great guy. I've known him a long time. He's actually probably been metal detecting a little less than I have, but he knows a tremendous amount about Civil War relics, more than I know because he has really studied them. And I called him an expert one day, and he told me, he said, don't call me that. He said the experts were the guys that were there and actually used the equipment and made the equipment and lost the equipment. He said after that, everybody else is just kind of guessing. And that's true. A lot of us guess more educatedly, I guess you'd say.
I'll just keep referring to you as the relic savant. So, hey, I tell you what, Butch, something
is that kind of like an idiot savant? We may be onto something.
It's however you want to take it. No, you actually really know your
it's
stuff.
all good.
Yeah, but something that I picked up from a book that I got from Graybird Relics, which, by the way, you guys run. And if you guys are looking for good books, go over to Graybird Relics. They also have relics for sale there. But I read a book that you have there that talks a lot about finding, say, these forts. For example, and you could use it anywhere. I was telling some of the guys out in Iowa, they had a known fort, and by finding records that the soldiers were moving to this other city and knowing the road, they could basically measure every so many miles and narrow down their search. I think the groups can move, 20 miles a day? Is that right, Butch?
20 miles a day is what they were generally required to do.
So, every 10 miles, you could kind of look and measure it off and look for water and kind of save yourself a lot of searching, I would think.
You could. And I tell you another thing that you can do is if you find a place like in a river crossing, okay, a lot of times the Confederates or Yankees, depending on who is being pursued, would burn the bridge at a river crossing or at least put up a good resistance. And troops tended to stop there. They would sometimes camp for several days waiting for them to clear the area or repair the bridges. So if you want to find a semi-long-term camp, look near a river. And also, you mentioned Graybird Relics and books. there's a book that we sell which has been our best seller, and it's really not a very expensive book. I think it's 13 to 14 bucks. It's called Finding Civil War Campsites in Rural Areas. That is the best basic camp findings information you can get. It's just incredible.
I think it's one of the ones that I read. That's like a kind of a binder type book.
Yeah, it's 48 pages. It's a lot of the information in there is pretty basic. Look for water sources, but there's other things in there you won't even think about.
Yeah.
And we recommend that to people, and we've sold it for at least the last 7 or 8 years, and we sell out of them all the time.
It's very inexpensive. Very inexpensive.
I think $14, 13 or 14 bucks. What better Christmas present too?
Yeah.
BlackbirdRelics.com. Check it out.
Yeah, I tell you, Scott and I buy a ton of books from you, and just great sources. I don't care how much you know, you can never, even those very basic books, a lot of that information I already knew, but you would be surprised at stuff you'll just kind of forget, and it will kind of remind you. I highly recommend that book. I've read it. Hey, I want to give out the call-in number real quick. I'm sure there's a lot of questions out there. And so far, our call-in number is working tonight, as far as we know. It's area code 678-774-7335. That's 678-774-7335. And it's also posted in chat. Miss Barb is manning our chat room tonight and taking care of that.
Hey, Barb.
We appreciate the help, and Swansea Searcher out there helping us as well. Good folks.
Speaking of Graybird Relics, I keep intending to go on and get some bullets from you, Butch, so that I can.
We got some. We're fixing to do we're trying desperately to get an update on some of the bullets because, a lot of the Civil War dealers don't sell bullets because they don't want to mess with the small dollar items.
Right.
Graybird Relics, we try to give people stuff that they can afford, and that includes, things that people would consider common bullets like Colts and Spencers and things like that. We sell them all the time, even drop-through ringers.
Well, heck, we've talked about this before, but Heath and I like we like to buy the little lots of bullets, just standard 3-ringers, and give them out to people because they're really special. Homeowners,
And we actually we're eliminating a collection now for for a girl whose father passed away, and he had a lot of just regular 3-ring bullets and Williams cleaners, and we've actually got groupings of those now. We're selling, I think, 50 in a bag, something like that, for a very reasonable price. And that's good. In fact, the Civil War show that we do in Charleston each year, American Digger does, in January 7th and 8th, I believe. But our first show was last year, and we were doing that for the kids coming in the door. We were giving them bullets, and they were really getting into it. Yeah. Of course, the ones with slingshots, we wouldn't give them bullets because we didn't want to do with it.
You knew from experience.
Because you know what? That just grinds my gears.
That's hilarious. Hey, I tell you what, we've got sort of an unconventional question come in via text message. One of our listeners, Randy Llewellyn, and I know you've hunted with him.
No, that was not me on YouTube last night. That's the question. Oh.
See? You almost know. Now, he asked, and he made a statement about hard to travel 15, 20 miles when you're skirmishing, but he asked a question if you had ever hunted camps with tater bones or Foots Griffin.
Yes, as a matter of fact, I knew Foots quite well. Foots was I knew Tater too up there in Paulding County. They were both characters. I didn't hunt a lot with Foots because he was somewhat of a loner, but I would be out in the middle of the woods up at Paulding County and hear something coming through the woods, and it would be Foots out in the middle of nowhere. And he wasn't called Foots for no reason. That was a big old fella. And the first time I ever ran into him out in the woods, that was before the movie Deliverance came out, but looking back on it, I would have heard banjo music playing. He was scary guy, but once you got to know him, he's a great guy. Found a lot of good stuff too.
He followed it with LOL on the text. So
yeah,
I heard some of the stories.
Person if you're going to hunt with Foots, and there are some legends about him, and not all of them are pretty.
Yeah.
And I don't know if they're true or not, but from what I heard, he could get very territorial about sites he considered his.
Yeah, yeah. So I tell you, man, what else? I mean, I know we've just scratched the surface, and you probably don't want to give away all your secrets, but what else are some of the things that you guys would do when hunting for those camps?
Well, this is one that used to be great. Nowadays, people kind of caught on to it, I think. But we used to, not all camps are documented. I mean, not that are easy to find. And you know that, you and Scott both know that down here. The short-term camps, you generally luck into them. Something we would do, though, to find sites is we would look at road names. I remember finding back behind Cheatham's Hill area, and it was a mile or two behind it, but there was a road called Mini Ball Ridge. And when I saw that road name, I'm like, they had to name that for relics. And I went over there, it was a big Yankee camp. Because somewhere along the way, somebody had found mini balls and they had named it that. There's a Button Hill in Marietta. And the funny thing is, a Button Hill Road. And I suggest people not go up there. You'll get shot because it is no trespassing now. But we were hunting that years ago when there was just a little unnamed dirt road up there, and we all called it Button Hill. So, somebody looking for a camp now would see Button Hill, and they would go up there. Yes, that was a camp.
Well, Scott and I found like camp streets before when we were looking for camps. I was like, hey, Scott, I think that's a clue.
Yeah.
And another good one is Confederates camped here, Avenue.
Yeah.
I'm waiting to see that. I'm waiting to see that street.
Now, another thing that my experience has been, at least on these camps, if they like to actually camp where there was at least one or two house sites nearby, because I think the officers like to go to the houses and stay. So that's another good thing, is find the old house sites and look around them.
Well, guys, I can tell you this. I'm still looking for Belt Plate Boulevard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, Butch, I was noticing in the chat somebody had mentioned something about not being that lucky in Florida, and there are camps in Florida, and
there are,
and
hard to
probably
find.
Yeah, because of the sand, or tell us a little bit about that. Maybe that can help out our Florida listener.
I've never really hunted a lot in Florida. I have hunted a little bit near Pensacola, and found a few things there, and Tallahassee, I've never hunted, but there was a huge Confederate camp in Tallahassee. But the experiences I've had in Florida it was hard to research because I really couldn't find the original old roads. I think it's because a lot of the roads changed because it's all flat. You could run a road wherever you wanted to.
Right.
And a lot of the ones that I know of down there were hearsay. Now, on the Swanee River, there were at least one or two camps along that, and probably more, but I've never actually hunted those.
Now, Butch, I don't know if this is a urban legend or from where my father grew up or not, but he tells me he grew up around the Tallahassee area. He tells me stories about local legend is that cadets out of Tallahassee kind of repelled a Yankee amphibious invasion down there on that stretch of coast, and it was cadets from Florida State, and they actually used some artillery and got them in a bottleneck or whatever and kind of pushed them back.
Well, now, there was the Battle of Olusty Pond. I'm not sure if that's near there or not, though, because my geography's a little off right now. But I do know that somewhere around Tallahassee there have been some archer shells found, which are very rare. And I don't know where they were found down there, but I do know a guy that has found some, and also he has found several Florida state seal buttons, which are rare as hen's teeth.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I wonder sometimes, sometimes these towns have some passed down, word of mouth kind of legends about engagements that happen that really aren't on the books.
Yeah, there's a lot of engagements that were on the book, I think. I mean, when you look at the overall scope of the Civil War, here in North Georgia, for instance, we consider this just full of soldiers, and it was the best thing or the worst thing that happened during the war, whatever, big event. However, they called Atlanta and Georgia the sideshow. This
Yeah.
was not even considered a major engagement to them. It was a campaign. So there are a lot of little skirmishes and even small battles that happen that really deserve or really show no more than just a passing phrase in a book, if that. I mean, we found skirmish sites before that are not listed at all by finding shot bullets. And you just kind of got to work it out from there. If you find shot bullets, you got to figure they were probably shooting at someone, so you find where those people were, and that's where you'll find the dropped relics sometimes.
Yeah, Heath, we'll be real careful about being specific here, but we are researching one particular skirmish where this outfit was heading in a certain direction. They got.
Oh, you said too much. You've said too much.
I know.
Well, keep talking, guys. Keep talking.
And anyway,
GPS.
The journals say they got into a skirmish and then they camped, and so we know the general area. So we have to figure out where they skirmished, and then I guess somewhere close to there, if the geography's right, they would have camped.
Right. So that's it. And after a skirmish, what would they want to do? They would want to refill the canteens for one thing, probably.
Yeah, right. Water the horses. Yeah.
And also, depending on how far they pushed those soldiers ahead of them, I imagine they stayed a little bit nervous, and I imagine they had several picket lines out too, and pickets. So.
Yeah.
I'm more interested in the skirmish because I believe some of it was Texas cavalry. So.
Yeah.
That would be a nice thing. Now, that's another thing. Cavalry camps are big. They are really big, the ones I've been in, and because they had to have a place for their horses. And also, what a lot of people don't realize, when you get into the skirmish or battles, most cavalry, I say most in the areas that I'm used to hunting, preferred to fight dismounted because you're a heck of a good target if you're on a horse. So we found a site here. Actually, it was at one of the flanks of Kennesaw Mountain. I won't say a whole lot more than that. But we found where in the records they were talking about they held the horses back behind the lines while the troopers dismounted and went off to fight on foot. And we found where they held the horses and got a couple of good buttons out of there.
Oh, wow.
Because it was almost like a mini camp. You know, they had, I think one guy was required to hold 3 horses.
We drew the short straw or the long straw, I guess.
I'm not sure which one. I'm not sure if that was
probably
lucky
the long
or
straw.
unlucky.
Probably the lucky straw, I would think. I don't know.
I would say lucky.
That's probably where they put the old guys back there.
As long as you're not getting shot at in a war, I think
I think I'd rather handle the horses. That's right.
Yeah.
And, at that same spot, this was one of the neater relics I think I've ever found. But at that same spot, to show you how Confederates would use Yankee equipment but not be very proud of it, I found a pocket knife, which these were sold by sutlers. I've seen other examples of them. They've got stars all the way around the brass handles of the pocket knife, and in the middle it's got a U.S. Well, the pocket knife I found, the soldier had taken it and carefully filed the U.S. off both sides. So it was just stars.
Wow.
Nice.
Hey, Butch, we were talking about the Texas cavalry camps and stuff, but have you hunted out west very much towards Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, that way?
I've hunted Texas a little bit. In fact, we hunted some Texas Ranger camps out there, which was kind of cool. And also a place where my history may be way off on this, but I think it was where the Texas Rangers were actually battling some renegade Indians out there. And we found some cool stuff. We found the Indian camp, and I've got one of the coolest relics I found from out west. It's actually we found 2 of them, but it's an eagle button that's been squashed flat, and it's got 2 holes punched in it. My first thought is, well, it was somebody making them a button. But what one of the locals out there told me was that the Indians would actually punch holes in buttons and hat ornaments and things like that and use them on their gear just as decoration.
Huh.
So they would actually use the cavalry stuff and I guess if they got a hold of it, some Texas the other guys too. So
Well, now
Very neat.
even during the Civil War, while they were not fighting the Southern, they were also fighting some of the Indians out there at the same
they were.
time.
They were. In fact, guy with us that day found a breastplate.
Yeah.
Found it in the Indian camp, which we thought was kind of odd, but it looked unmolested. It was just the whole plate. Now,
Well,
we also found a Jeff Davis hat ornament out there that, again, had holes punched in it to sew to a jacket or to a headdress or whatever.
Yeah, because this would have been, I mean, the large number of Indian aggressions and all that out west, and the conflict with the settlers out west. Actually, a lot of it happened after the Civil War. So this would have been right in the thick of it.
Yeah, it happened all the way through there. Now, here again, we're talking about camps. Guess where the Indian camp was? It was right by flowing water by a river.
Yep.
So, and it was on relatively flat ground. It wasn't treacherous terrain. However, I'm gonna tell a little story that's a little bit off from the subject here. But when I was out that camp, I had been warned about rattlesnakes because it was getting warm at that time, and I've never had much experience with rattlesnakes. I mean, down here in the South, we have the rattle-headed copper moccasins, but those are a little different. So I'm out there, and I'm listening for the rattle. I don't hear any rattles or anything, and I'm out there detecting, and I back up, and all of a sudden, I feel the sharpest pain sticking in my leg. I go, oh, God, I'm snake bitten. I turned around, and there was a hellacious cactus right behind me. So I got bit by a cactus.
That's hilarious. Hey, guys, we actually have a caller on the line.
Hey.
The last four numbers, 8142. Go ahead.
Hey, Heath, Scott, and Butch. It's Brandon. How are you?
Hey, Brandon.
Hey, Brandon. How you doing?
I'm doing very well, Butch. I have a question for you. You were talking about earlier how soldiers would march along the roadway, following the roads and looking to be within an eighth of a mile of the road and keeping water in their sights. If there was no road available, would they actually just follow the water itself and just know that they actually had the hydration factor available and know where the road might be, or do they stay?
That's a good question. My experience down here has been, okay, where we live at, generally if there's a water source down there like a creek or river, there's going to be a road, even a small farm road that followed, kind of along the water source. But when you had an army on the move, now I'm talking about an actual army of several thousand men, you had to have supplies for them, you had to have equipment, and you had wagon trains that would supply a lot of the stuff. And those wagon trains had to travel on the road. The artillery had to travel on the road. I would think that any time you had them breaking loose from a main column like that and traveling off of the roads, it would probably be small groups of men, perhaps cavalry, but even riding a horse through raw woods would be a dangerous and probably pointless endeavor, because unless you had reason to believe the enemy was somewhere in there or you were trying to cut them off at the pass or something, it probably would just be kind of ineffective.
That makes perfect sense. And the other question I had for you, too, you were talking earlier, perfectly, and you were talking earlier, too, about these guys that would set up at the picket post. And when the gunfire would go off, everybody at camp would have a chance to, reload, get ready to go.
Right.
Do you have any idea how that was determined, who these poor suckers were at these picket posts? Was it short straw? Did they get paid more money, or was it a rotating thing?
Well, no, it generally rotated. It would rotate amongst the companies. Let's say, okay, tomorrow Company C has been drawn for picket duty. Send up 4 men. Now, I don't know how they determined those 4 men. Maybe whoever's turn it was. And then the next night it might be Company D is on picket duty. And these guys, they weren't there for a full 24 hours, I don't think. My experience has been, or my understanding is, they were probably there for 12 hours or so, because the worst thing they could do is fall asleep on the picket line. I mean, that was an offense that they could be shot for. So I think they rotated them probably twice a day usually. Now, I'm sure there's a lot of exceptions to that. But I think generally they rotated the men, and it was probably just whoever's turn it was at that time.
Well, then I'd rather be the old unlucky bastard to have to hold the 3 horses at one time than be on that picket post. I'll tell you that much.
Job I won't.
Yeah.
Hey, because if the stuff really started getting real, you could jump on one of those horses and be scarce really fast.
Yeah, I was going to say, you've got 1 out of 3 choices. Which is the fastest one? You just stare them up and down and choose, okay, this one looks like the winner.
Which is the fastest. But, it's there was a lot of military regulation that went into this. I mean, it was the military during the Civil War. They did have certain regulations and certain ways they were supposed to do things. But once they got out in the field, especially when it was out in the wilds of Georgia or South Carolina or something like that, I think they also kind of used their own common sense a lot of times.
And that's kind of what I was also wondering, too. Is there a situation where maybe somebody was acting a little bit less than reputable, in the company or whatever was going on, and would you punish somebody by putting them on a picket post, or would you want your more dependable people on the picket post because that's your first lines of defense?
I think what you would do is you might put 1 or 2 of them on the picket post, but you would put them with some of your guys that you knew were good, too. You want somebody alert. I'll tell you a way that soldiers were punished, though, and I have only seen a record of this one time, but I've run into 2 different sites where I think this is what happened. But are you familiar with a Williams cleaner bullet, Brandon?
Only because of recently, actually, the guy from Detecting at Tees actually sent me a T-shirt the other day and some Williams cleaner bullets. It's the first I've actually had in my possession.
All right. Well, what they would do, these bullets, for people that don't know, they had a washer back behind them, and to make a long story short, when you fired the gun, the washer would expand behind the bullet, and it would actually scrape the gun barrel and supposedly clean a lot of the crud out of it, which they did work. And in battle, they would say shoot 1 for every 10 bullets. Excuse me. But in reality, these guys would go as long as they could without having to shoot these bullets because they kicked like a mule. Excuse me, I'm getting over bronchitis here. But anyway, so what they did for punishment, if say so and so had been lax, or this guy had run in battle, or that guy, they would actually, after a battle, they would collect all of the Williams cleaners that weren't used. They would send 2 or 3 guys out with all of the rifles, and they would target shoot with nothing but Williams cleaners until all those guns were cleaned out.
Oh, wow.
And they would come back with really sore shoulders. They hated that duty.
So if you find a bunch of fired Williams cleaners, that's a clue.
It is. There was a site over here on Stanley Road near Kennesaw Mountain. I think a lot of people that hunt around here knew about it. But I think the only bullets that were found out there were Williams cleaners. There were hundreds of them.
Wow.
Well, and that's something else, Butch. Butch is a little under the weather. That's why we were going to have him on.
Folks.
No, we were going to have him on last week, and he wasn't able to join us because of his flumonia.
Flumonia is the truth.
I'm telling you.
Get into a really interesting subject.
Yeah. But what I was going to mention was, we find a lot of those where they also discarded them as they marched along roads. That's a good clue.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, little known fact that I found my first.
See, that's why they threw them away, Heath. They hated using them. They just had a bad kick to them.
That's right.
Yeah.
My first ever Civil War relic was found long before I met Butch and Heath, and that was down in Savannah. I had this cheap little metal detector, and one of my neighbors was building a restaurant up by the Interstate 95 that runs through there close to the Savannah River.
Yep.
And I, just out of a whim, I said, can I go up there and metal detect because you've got the place cleared out. I went up there and I found that weird-looking bullet, and it was a Williams cleaner. And at the time, I didn't know what it was. And Bobby Mallard. Yes, yep. Bobby Mallard told me that is Williams cleaner. He found your first Civil War bullet. So,
that area you're talking about has been very good to me over the years. It's kind of petered out now, but all around 95 there was good.
Yeah, they came right down that Savannah.
A lot of good stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
Hey, Butch, speaking of those Williams cleaners, did they see a lot of those out west, out in like Iowa, Kansas, Colorado?
I would be afraid to say for sure, but I've never heard of many of them coming from out there. Now, something I was told by some of the bullet experts, and I use that term loosely, but, the guys that know about the bullets, they said that in the Atlanta campaign, for some reason the government had ended up with a big surplus of Williams cleaners, and by the time the troops had reached Savannah, they were actually sending them cases of nothing but Williams cleaners trying to use them up. And I think most of them got dumped, though I don't think they used many after that.
You do find a lot.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah.
You find a lot more down here than you do anyplace else.
Yeah. And Swansea, Brandon dropped off. Thanks for calling in, Brandon.
Thanks, Brandon.
Yeah, great questions.
Yeah, awesome questions. And guys, our call-in number is still open. If you want to give us a call, it's in the chat room. Feel free to give us a call. It's area code 678-774-7335. Don't be shy. If we can do it, anybody can do it.
That's the truth.
So,
ever since I was a little kid, I always wanted to be a guest on this show, so thank you. Thank you, History Seekers.
Major dream of reality.
And History Seekers, thank you so much.
Seeking history wherever it's found.
That's right.
Seeking history wherever it's found. We have a good time doing this, man. I've loved doing it since I started. I'll love doing it till the end.
Yeah, I tell you, a lot of good information. And for those of you that don't know, that have just listened to History Seekers, Butch is also the co-host or the host over at American Diggers Relic Roundup. It was the longest running podcast, history-based metal detecting podcast out there, and one of the most popular. And I was fortunate enough to be asked to be a guest host on there, and I've been on there over a year now. So,
yeah, I think you're going on probably 2 years.
Yeah, I think is it 2 years?
Yeah, you had been on there a while. Yeah, even last year.
That's why we have trouble getting guest hosts anymore when one of us are out, because they know that we'll never let them go.
Well,
you want a guest next week?
I ask him all the time whenever I'm under the weather. I'm like, Scott, fill in for me. He's like, I'm busy. So, but I tell you what, one thing I can say about these shows, and the people that don't listen to all of them, you should. There's a bunch of good ones out there. And Relic Roundup's one of them. Beyond Sight and Sound, Hardcore Metal Detecting. There's several out there. I suggest everybody listen to all of them, and I typically do.
The more knowledge, the better.
Yeah, there's one thing. It has helped me, that and reading American Digger magazine has helped me finding camps and listening to these different guests. Sometimes you pick up just a tidbit of knowledge from, just any guest. You never know when it might jump out there at you. So
now I will tell you another way to find camps that a lot of people don't think about. But okay, anybody who was alive during the Civil War, of course, is dead now. At least I hope so. And probably their descendants are too. But you know how your granddaddy used to tell you stories, or your father used to tell you about what his grandfather saw or whatever. Talk to old timers in a town and ask them, say, have you ever heard of Civil War soldiers camping around here? Or have you ever heard of some of the Indians camping around here? And you will be surprised at the information you pick up that way. I mean, good information.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we've actually had that happen a few times in some of these small towns where some of the older members of the community will talk about how their grandparents watched soldiers march by, or there was this one particular case, and again, we'll speak in vague terms.
Very vague.
But this man said, my grandmother told me that a ragtag bunch of Confederate soldiers marched through here with cannons and everything else, and she sat on the stump and watched them most of the day as they passed.
Yep, there you go. And stories like that get handed down from generation to generation. Sometimes they get embellished a little bit, but generally there's always fact to them.
Right.
And there's also, it puts you in a location where somebody was there.
That's right.
Very good.
Where there's smoke, there's usually fire.
Well,
That's
and
exactly.
I tell you, Butch, it's that kind of information that basically led us to the picket, and I believe it was probably a picket where I found the Cooking Brothers nose cap.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
That's the little bit I know that you guys have told me about that, and we'll keep real tight-lipped about that. But I think you guys are on the verge of a major camp. You just have to figure out exactly where it is. And remember, it could be an eighth of a mile away.
yeah,
Yeah.
you're making me want to go right now.
I'm not so certain that the place where I found the script eye wasn't a picket as well.
Yeah,
It could have been.
It was within proximity of where supposedly there was some artillery.
It very well could have been. Now, you know something interesting, Scott? Okay, you said there was a vicinity of artillery and you found the infantry button. You would think you would only find A buttons, but I have found that infantry buttons are found at artillery positions and cavalry positions both when it comes to Confederates. I think the guys wore whatever they had at the time. And
Whatever they could get.
That wasn't always the correct uniform. Yeah, whatever they could get.
True.
well, and they did attach riflemen to help protect the cannons as well.
Oh, that too. Yeah,
Yeah.
too.
Hey, we've got a call coming in. Let's take this. And last four is 9621. Go ahead.
Hello, it's Anthony from Killen. How y'all doing tonight?
Good,
Hey,
Anthony.
Killen, Alabama, I should have said.
Familiar
I got
well.
a question. My question is there a book that shows, like this specifically, campsites of the Civil War? Or I don't know if there's anything like that or not. I'm just curious.
Yep. There actually is, and as luck would have it, Graybird Relics has one copy in stock because it's an out-of-print book. But the name of it is Campfires of Georgia Troops. I believe by Bill Smedlin, but it's Campfires of Georgia Troops. Now, this is just Georgia soldiers, and you may not even know about this book. It's
I
just
hadn't heard about
soldiers. Yes, but it tells, like for instance, it will tell the 5th Georgia in Stafford, Virginia, where they camped. Oh, it's awesome. The bad thing is, though, the catch is, and it lists more than 200 camps in that book, and they are very accurate. But the bad thing is the guy that wrote it was a relic hunter, so most of them are going to be hunted.
But they hadn't been hunted with the machines we've got.
But you will find the camp. That's how I found the one in Pensacola. It told me right where to go. But it's Campfires of Georgia Troops.
You might want to jump on that one.
We have one at Graybird Relics, if I'm not mistaken. If you don't see it on there, just call us tomorrow, 770-362-8671, and we will jump in there and see if we can find it for you.
Do you know how much that book is?
How much is that book, Anita? We actually did not. We generally charge a percentage of whatever we had to pay for it, and it's not very outrageous. I'm thinking about probably $50, $60, something like that. It's a hardbound book.
Worth every penny.
Worth every penny. I've got a copy of it, and my copy has bookmarkers all in it.
Anthony, did you have another question, man? I didn't mean to cut you off.
I was just going to say the last two bullets I found was in Athens, Alabama, right around the courthouse, and I understand that was actually where the Confederates surrendered. So I don't know if that's true or not, but that's what I heard. But it was in Athens, Alabama, right there around the courthouse, and there used to be 4 cannons around the courthouse. And I've talked to some people, and they say they don't know where they went to. So,
wow.
What?
Well,
yes.
Now, I'll tell you what happened to a lot of the cannons is if you do some research back during World War II, and I think probably World War I as well, but especially World War II, they would have scrap metal drives, and there was an obscene amount of cannons that were melted down for the war effort. So that may or may not be where they ended up, but a lot of them were destroyed.
They even went out and hunted some of them, I think.
I think these ended up in somebody's basement or shop or something.
Well, that's happened too. The thing about cannons, though, is a lot of them can be traced, and I know there have been some that have been missing for years that just suddenly show up out of the middle of nowhere. So it's kind of. In fact, there's one fella that was working on a book. I don't know if he's completed or not, but he was trying to account for all of the Yankee cannons that were issued during the war and where they're at now and what happened to them. And I don't see how that could be done, but he was trying to do it.
Oh, very interesting.
Very interesting.
All right, Anthony. Well, thanks for calling in.
Thanks, Anthony.
Yep. Thanks for this
You know that-
session.
No
Take
problem. That totally reminded me of an Andy Griffith episode I just saw, Butch, with Andy and Barney driving around town trying to get somebody to buy the town cannon.
That's the best one ever. That's right. I love it. That's right up there with the goat to take the dynamite.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, this hour has just flown by, Butch.
It had it, though, man. Gee.
And we
appearing
still
on somebody else's show makes it feel like a vacation to me. I don't
There
have to
you
do
go.
it. I like this.
I tell you what, I need about one more show to do per week, and I think I'll just be fulfilled. So, Butch, I tell you what, before we start wrapping things up, tell them about Graybird Relics again and the magazine.
I'll do that. If you want what I consider the best reading entertainment there is concerning any kind of metal detecting find, and not just metal detecting, we even cover arrowheads, we cover old bottles, any type of stuff that you'll go out and dig, including Civil War. Be sure and check out American Digger magazine. You can go to AmericanDigger.com. And by the way, we're fixing to launch a new website, but it's the same address, AmericanDigger.com. You can order a copy there. You can also see sample issues for free online from there. Or you can call our office from Monday through Saturday from 10 to 6 until Saturday. We're only open till 1. But it's 712. I've got it. What is it, Anita? Tell them the number. 770-362-8671. And I'm coughing again. And Graybird Relics is graybirdrelics.com. Check us out. Be sure and get some books there. We got relics. We got about anything you need. How's that?
All right. Thanks, Butch. And Scott?
Yeah, I just wanted to remind people that Treasure Mountain Metal Detectors also sells drones now.
We
They do.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got one flying outside of Butch's house right now, monitoring.
Hey, if you guys are flying that drone and see me standing too long by a tree, do not take pictures.
But I'm actually about to get my drone in tomorrow, my personal drone, and I'll be doing some footage and stuff like that. But drones are a great way to get a bird's eye view in metal detecting of fields and home places and stuff like that. You can almost see the features sometimes in these fields from a bird's eye view. So just something to think about.
It's like live Google Earth.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah. Real-time images that you can't get anywhere else. So, and a lot better resolution.
Scott, that brings up something else about finding camps is, a lot of the old roads aren't roads anymore. You can fly a drone over it or something and look for the depressions and find roads that way. And that is a lot of times the Civil War roads.
And you can absolutely see them, too.
Yep.
So, good information. And Scott does a lot of our drone stuff. If you guys need anything, call. You can either call the main number or you can call Scott direct. And, Scott, you want to give your business line out?
You're going to give me on the spot. I don't have it handy.
Yeah,
I just got it set up. I'll tell you what, just message me through Facebook and I'll call you back.
There you go. And I tell you what, guys, and if you need any metal detectors, give me a call. We do still have the Fisher F75. We're giving away the free 15-inch coil still with that. And we've also got the Technetics T2 Classic, and we're giving away a free 15-inch coil and a battery charger kit with that as well. and that's $4.99. You can't beat that, or $5.99 for the F-75. Whichever one you choose, you absolutely can't beat that deal. And we should have AT Pros back in stock, hopefully within the next 24 to 48 hours. If you're listening and you're waiting on shipment of those are going to be going out soon. And we should have a few more if anybody hasn't gotten one for Christmas. The time is closing down. The time is drawing nigh. If you want that for a Christmas present, you need to.
They're like Cabbage Patch dolls. Yeah, they're like Cabbage Patch dolls that detect silver.
Yeah, exactly. And they're running out. So
that's wrong in so many ways.
I'm still processing that.
How do you even come up with this stuff, Scott?
Well, I got kids, so we're out looking for stuff.
And plus you're friends with me, so there you go. You didn't have a chance. Poor fella.
I'm going to have to process this after the show. That's too much for me, Cabbage Patch Kids. And
I don't know how we even did that.
We are way into free baseball. Listen, join us again next week on History Seekers. We're on every Tuesday night. We come on at 8 Central, 9 Eastern. And also on Monday nights, make sure you listen to Relic Roundup. Also, same time, 8 p.m. Central, 9 p.m. Eastern. Be glad to have you. And we take callers there. So looking forward to seeing you next week, and we will see you then. Well, congratulations. If you're all the way here to the end, you're hardcore and you probably want to know a lot about camps. Guys, we've got a lot of these podcasts very much like this, very different information, and sometimes a little bit of the same information. If you want to see more stuff like this, drop a comment down below and let us know. That way we can put this out more. We just want to do this a little bit of a test. So, like I say, if you're watching this and you're already to the end, you're our hardcore viewers, and we want to tell you we really appreciate you most of all for watching all the video. Also, if you're not already sharing this, please share it out. Help us get the word out so we get more people. We're at almost 41,000 people right now. We're trying to get the word out more about us, and we appreciate you guys sticking with us. See you guys in the next video.